Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to a new show that we have here at Albany State University, ASU Channel 19 TV, A Conversation With. I'm excited about my first guest. She has made a pivotal and huge impact here at Albany State University, and I'm honored that she's granting me an in-depth focus interview on what has helped to shape her and the role that she currently serves in, which is President of Albany State University. Marion Fedrick, how are you today?
Well this morning. And thank you for the invitation.
It is my pleasure. I am certainly honored. You and I have daily conversations because of my role that I treasure, and we'll get into that briefly a little bit later. But throughout, you engage different constituencies.
Yes.
And are constantly asked to do interviews. And probably about a month or two ago, you were asked to do one, and I learned so much more. As much as I thought that I knew about you, I learned so much more. And I told you that I felt like so much of that information was left in that room, yes, and that we had to capitalize on that and share with our community and the Southwest Georgia region and all those who have an opportunity to learn more about Albany State University through this medium. And so you said yes, and I'm very excited about that. I'd like to start with, if you will, the end in mind, and then we'll kind of work backwards. And what I mean by that is you and I have talked about what your legacy will be. And you are extremely passionate about students and creating a holistic environment for them so that when they enter these doors, they are prepared to embark upon any journey. But before we go into that, I want you to share with the viewers about when you knew that this was your calling, that you were destined to serve in this role.
All right. So, one of the things I think I can say about my life is that I've never thought or dreamed about a job. I've always thought about the work that needs to be done, and then the title comes later. When I think about Albany State, we actually, probably about the first year I got here in October of 2017, we did some tours. We went to Washington Avenue Presbyterian Church. And sitting in that church, as Pastor Moy was speaking, I noticed on the left side of him, there was a stained glass window that had Dr. Holly's name in it. And on the right side, there was also a stained glass window that had David Laney on the glass window. You may not know, I'm from Augusta, moved from North Philadelphia to Augusta, Georgia, went to Lucy Laney High School. I was not overly excited about going to Lucy Laney High School at that moment, at that time when I had to go there. But as I was sitting there looking at Pastor Moy and looking at these stained glass windows, I'm thinking it couldn't be the same person. There couldn't be a connection. There's no way that David Laney, who I know is Lucy Laney's father, I know she's from Macon. I just thought there's no way there's a connection. And then the pastor got up, he started talking, he made that connection between the two of them. And I thought, my God, the doctor who started Albany State University and the parent of the person who started Laney High School were right there together. Not only were they together, Mr. Laney was actually a mentor of Dr. Holly's. I never knew that until that moment. I'm never normally short for words, but in that particular moment, I could not say anything. I had to get up and speak. It was a little difficult, and I had to tell the audience, let me tell you why I'm struggling with this, because these two have a link that I fought against when I came to Georgia, because I didn't want to come to Georgia. I was a happy Philadelphia person. I was happy, grew up there, and I saw the connection. I saw the connection not just for our school, not just for ASU and Laney High School, but for me being the middle of that. So as I stood between the two stained glass windows, I realized this is a calling. All of the things I thought about for ASU, and as most people know, when I came to Albany State in October, my intent was to finish what I had to do here, yes, and then return to Atlanta, return to where my family was in Atlanta. As I went through that process, I also realized I hadn't finished what I came to do. And there's a lot to be done, and I do think I'm here for that reason, for that sole purpose, sole reason.
Outstanding. Well, I'm a firm believer that the universe will line things up.
Yes.
We may not understand it at that particular moment, but one of the other points that you made during this conversation that I was privy to, just be an observer, in is that you talked about your parents and the role of education. Share with the viewers your mother's role. That still resonated and still resonates with me today, because that is a very unique ability to have, considering the number of children that your parents had. But your mother's ability to then hone in on each individual child and their educational pursuits. Share with the viewers a little bit about that.
I'll do that. And by the way, my mother's name is Marion as well. Growing up, I always told my grandmother, you named her after me. And I still say that. But my mother, 10 kids, my parents have 10 kids. All of the neighborhood was in our house at one point or another. I mean, they came to my mother because that's the spirit she has. And I always prayed, honestly, that I would get part of her spirit. I want to be as loving and caring as she is, because I always thought I took more after my father than my mother. My mother had the canny ability. She knew every one of her children. She treated us differently in a very positive way. She knew with me, I was a little more hands-off. Didn't need to talk every day and be, with her every day. Others were a little different. Our educational levels were different. She expected certain things from us. She expected us play instruments. We were all required to pick up an instrument, learn how to play. Didn't have to do it well, but you had to play. That was part of her learning. We had encyclopedias in our house. My father brought encyclopedias every year. The world was not changing that quickly to have a new set, but he thought that was important. And she infused in us, it's kind of like, Maya Angelou's saying that people may not know or remember what you said or how you say it, but they will remember how it made you feel. And she was a believer in that. And she taught us, be humble, because you're gonna always have what you need. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go after anyone else's items or things, because you're gonna always be fine. In my household, when we woke up in the morning, with all the love from the brothers and sisters, from the mother, from the father, from my grandmother who lived right across the street, we were cloaked before we opened the front door. And so there wasn't, even in Philadelphia, where in the area we lived in Philadelphia, in the times that we lived in Philadelphia, it was a difficult situation. But even then, we felt safe. We felt that we could do whatever we wanted, and we went about doing that. I think about my mother every day. If I don't get to talk to her every day, she's still in Augusta. But I think about how she encouraged us, how she said to us, you can do and be whatever you want to be. And not only can you do that, it's not an option. You have to. You have to go out and do it. You have to take others along. And she infused that in us from a very young age.
Excellent. Now that's your mom's role, and it's ongoing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your dad and his diverse career path, but you have to pinpoint or highlight the higher education piece.
Yes. So my dad, awesome father. My father worked for the Board of Education. My father was he was 6'3", wide as the door, very muscular. He was a boxer. That's what he did. He was a boxer. Well, he did that on the side. So really, he worked 2 and 3 jobs all the time. He was always working, but he was always in our lives. For the Board of Education, he worked everywhere from maintenance. So he drove the buses. He serviced the bus. He actually even did cafeteria. He would bring the lunches to the cafeteria. My father, again, it was 10 of us, so 9 brothers and sisters, very strong-willed, I think every one of us. It never ceased to amaze me that I was a little, I'm not gonna say rebellious in school, but I always needed to be heard. So if I had something to say, I was gonna say it. My father would pop up at any point in time in our school. So he was that figure that I would look up and he would be standing in the door, as wide as the door, as tall as the door, and it would mesmerize me. And I'm thinking, okay, George is looking, he is watching. And he always was in our lives. He would come in at night after work. How is the homework going? We had to do that before we could go out and play. He expected things, I think, out of me, and I would say that because it's from my lens. He expected things from me that I thought he didn't expect from my other brothers and sisters, because they were a little bit more probably obedient in everything that he said. And I was, again, sometimes I wanted to be heard a little more than I probably should have been. But he would come in, how far are you going? How much are you doing? And I would always say, I'm done for my homework today. And he would tell me, go to the next day. You know what needs to be done. Read the next chapter, do this, do that. And so he pushed all the time for the educational standpoint. And I appreciate that. I look back on that now, and think about how strong he was, although he didn't have the same level of education. He required, you all will be going to college. And I thought in that neighborhood, in that time, why did he push so hard? You know, it's not everyone in the neighborhood, most of the people in the neighborhood weren't going to school, weren't going to college. We were infused early. That's where you go. You know, go, even if it's for the first day, you decide it is not for you, we'll deal with it at that point. But my expectation is that y'all are in college. And he started funds early on to make sure that we had a little bit to go to college. When I got there, I realized that really wasn't a whole lot, but okay, it was a seed, it was that starting point, and he expected that. And so he didn't get a chance to go to college. He actually dropped out of high school. He dropped out of high school to go in the Army. Went in the Army and then went in the Marines when they realized he was too young to be in the Army. And that was really interesting because we didn't find that out until after his death, that he was in 2 branches of the military because he wanted to serve. And he wanted his children to do the same thing. So I also have 2 brothers that were in branches of the military. And I look at that thinking, my parents did okay. With 10 children, they did really well.
Indeed, they did. So 2 points, and I'm gonna bridge what I see in you as it relates to their parents. But I have to make this point, and I've had this conversation with him. So the president of Fort Valley State University, a very dear friend and colleague of yours, Paul Jones, also a product of parents who had 10 children. And his father, too, had a stint in education. And he talked about his father worked in facilities, custodial staff, and he said, I've just always been moved because who knew that my father, with those humble beginnings, only because he was not extended the opportunity because of the conditions and circumstances of that day. And I'm sure very much like your father, a very brilliant man, but again, because of societal denials, was not able to advance further. But to then have that connection of that role in education, very humble, but impacting role, to then produce children who would go on to become presidents of, very impacting institutions, higher ed institutions and universities within the state of Georgia. Yeah, so I've been given that charge, you need to write a story about us. Okay.
And no, even my mother for a long time didn't work because she had 10 children. She's caring for the 10 kids. My mother worked in hotels for a very long time. She did custodial work. She made sure that people were taken care of. So what she did at home, she had to go out and do the work as well as we got older. And I honor her. You know, I think about all that she did to make sure that we were okay. I shared with one of my sisters the other day, I said, you know, we didn't have a lot growing up, but we never knew it. And I think that's what makes the difference. It's key. We never knew that we were not the richer people, and then when we weren't, I mean, with 10 kids, you can't be. But I think about how much they poured into us. So very important.
Lacked for nothing. And so, and I'm sure you've thought about this throughout your life and certainly your career, their roles. And so when you shared those stories, and I initially heard those, it reminded me you comprise both of them. So your father's diverse career path in terms of the opportunities that he's had and the jobs and the roles that he's had, and certainly we'll delve into that a little bit more. You bring that to this role. You've had an extensive and a very impressive history in corporate world and certainly here in higher education, so there's that piece. You are very passionate about education. So there's that piece, that element. And then from your mom, I've seen you engage with students. And so there's that holistic piece. And so when you engage with them, it's as if they are the only student that are attending Albany State University. No, it's evident. And I see their response to you, and they feel that. So it's very individualized. What you have a keen ability of assessing, and I believe you quickly did this when you arrived here, is that the importance of meeting students where they are. And so we speak with colleagues all across the country, and you know, not to pick on this generation of students, or young people, but they come with so many needs. It doesn't matter the socioeconomic background that they come from. And so what you identified very early on is what your mother did. We have to treat them as individuals, even though we have 5,000, over 5,000 of them here, and offer them a holistic education. So when they leave here, it is more than just you are armed with a degree, that you are then able to navigate whatever world or path that you decide to pursue, enter, maintain, and then be successful. So speak to that. That's my observation. You may differ with that, but that's what I've observed. Why do you think that that's so important, particularly?
Very important, and there is no reason to get up and come to work at ASU if it's not for the students, if it's not for their success. I think our students come for particular reasons. I think each student has a story. We may not have the bandwidth to understand every story, but each student comes with a story. Some are difficult stories, some are, they've had everything they've needed their whole lives, and that's great. At the end of the day, once we say we accept you at ASU, I think we have a massive obligation to make sure that they are prepared for the world. And there's so many different facets that go into that. But when we look at our students and I hear them tell their stories, because they're willing to tell their story, and I love it, I want to hear it. I sincerely want to see what can I do to help impact a positive outcome to whatever story that is. If it's a great one, I want it to be greater.
Sure.
If it's one that we're struggling with, let's get through the struggle and get to the other side. At any point in life, people can give up on you. And we have got to make our students strong enough to understand that you can't depend on anyone to support you or not. You have to have it inside. When I think about how we do instruction, because they're here for the degree, they're here to get a degree, but they're also here to learn how to live. Life takes a different form when they step on campus. They're now totally independent. They have to do and take care of themselves. They have to decide that they want to be in the classroom. They have to decide whether or not they're going to engage with the students that are around them. How they're going to engage with your faculty member, how they'll engage with me when they talk with me. Lessons that may not have been learned at home or through high school, I do think we have an obligation to help them learn those things here. And so when I think about student success, which I say that over and over again, yes. It's not a person, it's not a department, it's not one function. It is how everyone at ASU should address our students. Student success comes in so many different forms. It could be that I need to help the student just get to school. I need them to get into the classroom. Some could be that I need the student to learn how to write better or to read better. We are obligated to do that. We need to learn, teach our students how to advance in their intellect. That is why we're here, and we have to be able to do that. I want to remove every obstacle, every barrier that stops us from being able to do that. I want to encourage our students to continue to tell their story. I thought when I got here, sitting right here in the Fine Arts Building, that most people didn't know I came from North Philadelphia. They didn't know that I grew up there, and I loved it, but they didn't know that. They didn't know that I grew up in a row house in North Philadelphia. I never shared those stories. I've been through coming from Philadelphia to Augusta, started working in 10th grade, got out of high school half day and started working. So I've gone from working in the Housing Authority, working at DuPont, Athens Regional has a registrar in the emergency room, police department, worked there as well, in the police department for several years, for the mayor in Athens, Clarke County as well. And then I came to Atlanta to go to work at Clarke Atlanta University, Emory Hospital and Emory University, Bell South, and worked at Bell South for several years. Worked in the state personnel division as well, and then the University System of Georgia. Had great titles at every single one of those. Again, wasn't looking for a title, but was looking for the work that happened to have gone along with those titles. Every student walking around here can do the same thing. Every student can be an executive director, an assistant commissioner, a vice chancellor, a president of a college. They can do that. We have those kinds of students here. We just have to help them decide what they want to do.
I agree wholeheartedly. So I love when you say that I thought my stint here was going to be...
Yes, 3 months.
3 months, sure. You had already defined it. You were down here on a mission to help with transition, and then lo and behold, you were tapped.
Yep.
And what I constantly thought of is that even when you were tapped and you had a conversation with the chancellor, several conversations, I know.
Yes.
And you said, no, I think the institution needs something different. But it was always that I know that statement was made from, I want to ensure that this institution, that this region in terms of higher education, gets the individual that will help to move the needle.
Right.
And his response to you was, she's already there.
It was.
She's already there.
And he said it several times,
Yes.
of which I ignored several times. I did. I ignored it. No, let's think about something else. Let's do something different. Here's what I think the institution needs. I went as far as coming with a composite of the person that I thought it needed to be at ASU. He's looking at that and thinking, I agree with every one of these.
Right.
I think it's still you. I think it's you. And so he and I had those conversations. As you know, I was a vice chancellor at the university, and although all the vice chancellors have a function attached to their title.
Yes.
So you're vice chancellor of physical affairs, vice chancellor of HR, which is what I was. It doesn't necessarily describe what you do. And HR for us is not, for the university system, it's not the typical, it's not process, it's not transaction, it's really more leadership and strategy and helping our institutions to be successful. And so, as we go through that, and I've worked with every one of the presidents in the university system. I've been on every campus in the university system. We've hopefully, we're able to improve operations at every university in the university system. ASU was a close to my heart institution from the day I stepped into USG. And it was because we were dealing with some things here that made me jump right in. So I had to jump in, and I wanted to help. And so it wasn't new to ASU when I came in October.
Right.
It's just that I was here every day.
Yes,
That's the difference, physical presence. But had already been just involved with Dr. Dunning, involved with Dr. Freeman at ASU, and looked at what they were doing and how they were doing it, frankly, and wanted to give feedback, which both of them, it brought me in and said, okay, what do you think about this? How do you think we should do this? What are some ideas about this? So I was always involved with ASU. When I came in October, it was to be here for just a few months. Let's get some things started. Let's get the transition for Dr. Dunning, which is what we do for every institution. Let's get that transition done. And I got deeper and deeper. I don't know what it is about Albany State, and I've said that before. I don't know if it's the city of Albany, if it's the students of Albany State, it's the history, the richness of Albany State, but I immediately got connected. And although out of my mouth, I was saying, you know what, it's 3 months, I'm done, I'll be out by January, on to my next adventure.
Yes.
My heart wasn't singing the same way. And I knew that early on, and I fought it. It was, nope, I need to move on. I was speaking it,
Sure.
And it didn't connect. It did not connect. My daughter was very quick to say, we're not coming back to Atlanta, you know that. And she would look at me, and she's just 12. She would look and say, we're going to Albany, we're going to be there for a while. And I would chuckle, I would laugh. I'm like, no, out of the mouths of babes,
Yes.
This comes forward. But I look at Albany, I look at the strategy that we need to put in place at Albany State. We are a very rich institution. We may not realize it, we may not appreciate it or accept it at this point. We've gone through a lot, but
Yes.
we've always gone through transition. When you think about where we started as a Bible and Manual College, we've transitioned from there to Albany College, to Albany State University, to a consolidated Albany State University. We always are transitioning. We just forget sometimes.
Indeed.
What we've already done and what we still have the energy and the strength to do.
Sure.
I think one of my responsibilities is to continue to tap on that energy, because it's not a single person that makes a college different. It's just not, it couldn't be. I don't think a single person makes any institution or organization better. It is a team, and I have great people on my team, on the team to serve the university. And that's what we need to do. The same thing at Bell South. We had a team around us. I had responsibilities for 7 states, did some great things there, and all of that, again, set me up for what I'm doing today. So all the things I did in every one of those jobs, I can look back and say I did that, which may have been hard,
Yeah.
I did that to connect me to get here.
Sure, sure. Well, to me, you may disagree, but I want you to go back, because one of your points of your career led you to make an impact with Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
Which of course you would breeze through Hurricane Michael that we had to endure. And so some days I sit back, and for the viewers that may not know, I have the honor of serving as your chief of staff.
Yes,
And
I have the honor of you serving as my chief of staff.
Thank you. And some days I awaken and I'm like, what is before us, knowing that we have so much to do, with the level of excitement, but also you have on your shoulders a level of responsibility. And in those waking moments, I've reflected back on, we're going to get through this day, this moment that is before us. Because I remember you saying you went through Hurricane Katrina. I don't want to dismiss Hurricane Michael and the impact that it had on Southwest Georgia, Albany State, but we weathered that. But the Hurricane Katrinas of the world were historic. And you had a key role with that. And so when you said how those experiences have bridged and helped to develop what we are doing today, please share with the viewers that moment and how that came to be.
Well, happy to. And actually, I didn't link the two together. I didn't connect the two until after. I didn't. It's like, wow. But while I was at Bell South, one of the things that our Vice President asked me to do the day before Hurricane Katrina actually hit, he asked me to go to New Orleans. He said, go to New Orleans, help us set up our tent city. And what Bell South did, because it's a utility company, and so utilities have to be up. And so we normally go in before the storm happens, because we want to be there up and ready by the time the storm is done with what it has to do. Now, when Hurricane Katrina, a little different in that the dams broke after the storm. So the storm was damaging, but the dams breaking was more damaging. That was a devastation. So we were there I was actually in Baton Rouge at the time, waiting out the storm. Then moved to Slidell, Louisiana, in the Four Elks Club, which was like a lane of different clubs in Louisiana, in Slidell. Well, my responsibility was to make sure all of the technicians had some place to stay, because we deployed technicians from all over the country to be in New Orleans to help out. I wound up supposed to have a tent that would sleep about 100 technicians. New Orleans is different. The culture is different. The culture is to be family focused, family oriented. And I say that to say that families, generations lived on one block, which meant that when I brought the technician in, I also had to bring in grandmother, I had to bring in granddaddy, I had to bring in cousins and aunts that were all on the same block. And so my responsibility grew from housing 100 technicians to housing over 300 technicians and those that were linked some kind of way to those technicians. I had to set up childcare, set up a school, set up a store. We had to make sure that they were fed every day, 3 times a day, and then with snacks. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I actually fell in love with my company at that moment. We were there in the middle of almost nowhere, setting up event tents, setting up cots. I had to set up a city, is what we did in Slidell, Louisiana, for our technicians. And then I got the opportunity to go with the technicians into New Orleans. Saw the devastation, saw the hurt that was still going on, pulling people at that point from New Orleans who weren't connected to Bell South at all, except for the fact that they had the service, because they needed help. And so we would bring them into the tent and we would feed and nourish and take care of them and help them get whole, from not just the standpoint of getting back on their feet, but there was a lot of, there still is, I do believe, a lot of emotional challenge that was going on. But I felt needed. I felt like that was a calling at that point. I would have never thought, that I would be in the middle of Slidell, Louisiana, putting up tents, digging ditches, meeting trucks at 4 o'clock in the morning as we got supplies to come in, and taking notes of the supplies that's coming off the trucks, and having to go through communities to see who was alive or not alive, to watch the houses being marked, to let you know there was death in the home. It was life-changing, and it set me up. When you think about being in a situation like that and being the leader in situations like that, everything else kind of, it's great, new experience, but you've already done some really difficult things. I'd already done those difficult things. Hurricane Michael was difficult, and it was new for people. It was new for our students who were here, and I think just from experience, I went into action. This is what we have to do, and the best part about that, we had so many people right there ready to go in action with us, including Dr. Jones. It was fabulous. Not in the sense of what happened, but how you saw people come together. The Albany community came together, our students came together, faculty and staff. I saw some faculty out there on days with those chainsaws, and I thought, oh my gosh, first of all, I hope they know how to use it. And then I would get overwhelmed to think that they're in the classroom every day. That's their job. Yes. And they still came on this campus to make sure that we had it cleaned up and safe for our students. And once you go through that, live through that, nothing else, you can live through anything.
Sure.
You can get to the other end.
You certainly brought, and I attribute it to certainly, again, the example of your parents, the experiences throughout your career, particularly the Hurricane Katrina moment. That you were able to then bring a level of compassion that is very unique. Certainly your HR background is a part of that. So you were very people, student focused, and that whole holistic experience. And so are they well from this standpoint?
Right.
Do we have the systems in place to create a very nurturing environment? So yes, our students went through Hurricane Katrina. Michael. Have we considered the psychological impact?
Right.
Do we have those services in place? Do we have enough? Because that does take a toll.
Right.
We get caught up as higher ed practitioners, whether it be faculty or staff, and stay so centered in our roles and how we're going to impact the students, but we don't always take the broader lens and apply that to that.
Right.
What are they coming to Albany State with? What experiences? What don't they have?
Right.
And we oftentimes apply what we did or what we had to that student, and that's unfair.
Yeah.
And so you remind us constantly, let's look at it from a broader perspective, which is why I started off with the end in mind in terms of legacy and your commitment to student transformation.
Right.
And so you put some systems in place. You have one major initiative, which is entitled Student Transformation.
Right.
Let's discuss that a little bit, because what we are experiencing and observing from different external constituencies, and they're saying this across the board. It is not just specific to Southwest Georgia or the state of Georgia, that corporations and companies are saying our graduates, they have the acumen is there as it relates to their discipline.
Right, that's right.
But there's some things missing, some soft skills missing. And you early on said, we have got to be intentional about addressing that.
Yes.
Let's speak to that and how we're going to infuse that, or how you envision infusing that into curriculum and the overall.
Most certainly. And actually, I think it's critical that we do. It's critical. Our students today are connected electronically very well. Yes. Every student has a phone or some device. They're connected electronically. We haven't told them how to connect from a personal standpoint. So we've kind of let some of the electronics take over for kind of the things that we would normally use and normally learn through being in an environment where you actually are interacting every day, every moment with someone else. Sure. One of the things that I look at, and sometimes we get it we lose our vision on the fact that the numbers of students who are at ASU, while it is important, I want our students to stay here and to graduate. And so retention and graduation is very important. Bringing them in the door is great. That's how we get them to the other side. But we have to retain them, and we have to retain them with the level of excellence, intentional excellence that we have to infuse. So our students should be concerned about what's going on in the classroom. I want them to think about their coursework every minute of the day that they are in those classrooms. I don't want them to have to worry about whether or not financial aid is working right, whether or not enrollment is there, their graduation audits are there. I want to take that off and put that behind the scenes. It is one of the most important things we do for our students, which should be unseen. And I know that's kind of counter, but it really is. They should not have to think about it every day. They shouldn't have to stand in lines in financial aid or stand in lines in order to be advised. I want that working the way it should work, which means it shouldn't be in the forefront. I don't want that in the forefront. I want our advisors, and we're looking at how we bring in more advisors. I want our advisors to be coaches, because we should start immediately when a student comes through our door. Let's help them understand how to be in college. We have a lot of first generation college students, and sometimes that means, and for me that just translates into someone did not coach you or may not have been available to coach you on how to get here, and then more importantly how to stay here and how to graduate on the other side. And with all the complexity of being in college, you need someone coaching and advising you. It is very difficult to do it by yourself. And so I want to put things in place where our students don't have to do it by themselves. So when they come in, and preferably before they get here. So we'll have a Summer Success Academy, which will bring students in. I would love for every one of our students to go through it before they step through the door of ASU, but we'll have a Summer Success Academy where we start them out before they come for fall semester. I think it's critical for our students, because if you haven't had all of the guidance before you got here,
Sure.
we're going to take 6 weeks to at least start teaching you how to get to the right place. The fact that it's important that you show up for class every day. Yes. That you do your work and turn in your classwork every time it's due, that you listen and engage with your faculty member. Sometimes our students don't come ready for that. And we need to make sure they understand that's our bar. That's where we start, and then we build from there. So we're going to take some time in the summer to make sure we get them there. We have curriculums I think we have some very innovative curriculums. I want to put more time, effort, money, resources into developing those curriculums to where they are degrees the students are seeking. They need to be in certain degrees. Our health professions, our professional college, our arts and sciences, we have some very rigorous coursework. I need to prepare them for that coursework. It's not unrealistic to think that we can start in that freshman year and get them to graduation with the skills like being able to talk, being able to do a great interview. Yes. It takes skills to do a great interview. You have to know your client, the employer that you're going to. You have to do research in order to make that happen. You have to be able to say a complete sentence, and that's important. Yes. You have to do letters and memos and emails. Sometimes I get emails that start out with, "Hey, President." And then I have to go into my tirade about that's not how you address the president. Sure. This is what you need to do. That's not how you address someone that you're coming to ask something of. Absolutely. You can't do it that way. But we haven't been in the mindset of teaching our students how to do that. So we have deep coursework. We have to mirror that with how deeply we can actually get our students prepared and ready to be successful in the workplace. Absolutely. Particularly when you think about things like health professions. You have to be able to engage with that customer when you go to their bedside. How do you engage with that patient? And we have people who are ready to help show them how to do that.
I agree.
The Governor Deal at the time, about 2 years ago, came up with college initiatives, and part of that was soft skills. And I look at soft skills thinking that's kind of what we learned just growing up. Mm-hmm. That's what we learned as a part of being in a work environment, in high school, talking with your teachers. Somewhere along the way, we disconnected that. I don't quite know yet why or how, but I do know how we can get back to making sure that our students are walking away with not just a degree, but with the pride that they should infuse in that degree, because they can speak to any employer. They can actually show and perform in the workplace. Just like they show up for class every day, show up for work every day, ready to be on 100% when you walk in. And I think that's important.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. It determines whether the next step, whether you even get an invitation.
Correct.
So this is an ongoing conversation in my household with my 17-year-old, and he probably hears me say it at nauseam. And so it starts off with, you never know if you're going to walk out and run into President Barack Obama. So now he'll beat me to it, and he'll say, "Mom, I'm not going to run into him today." But the message that I'm trying to convey is you don't know who you will meet that
That's
will
right.
provide you with an opportunity that you were looking for that was unexpected.
That's right.
And so how you engage, how you speak, how you're attired for the moment.
Right.
People have less than 2 minutes and are making quick assessments
In
about
2 minutes, less than.
2 minutes about whether they want to continue to engage or to shut it down.
Right.
And so we need to be able to navigate different environments. So I tell them all the time, and I was reassured probably last year because you'll walk by and you'll hear the conversations with he and his friends on the phone, and I'm
Yes.
cringing. My ears are almost bleeding because of the, not completing the sentence. But I was pleased, when I heard him, he had to conduct business over the phone. I was not engaged in it. And then he was able to adapt to that moment.
Right.
And because he knew how to speak to that person, he was able to glean more information that he expected.
Yeah.
But that's not every household. And
Right.
so that's the point that you're trying to make. And that's
That's
okay.
right.
But if that is not, we need to assume that that is not every household. And we've seen evidence of that. So when they
Right.
dawn these doors at Albany State University, what you continue to say to faculty and staff is, it becomes our responsibility.
That's right.
Yeah, we owe them that. They have choices. They didn't have to come to this institution.
That's right.
They chose us. And so again, with that, it is more than just getting them prepared academically,
Right.
but when they walk out of those doors, because it impacts our brand as well. And so they're going to hopefully proudly say and justly say, I'm a graduate of Albany State
That's right.
University. But what does that encompass? And did we give them all of the tools that they needed to then proudly have that title or that designation?
That's right. And one of the things I think about with our students, and that is, I believe that once we say, yes, you're in, we are obligated. We're obligated, and we have to do some things. When you think about our culture, when you think about where we started from in 1903 and 1963, particularly in 1903, we started with the mindset of we're going to educate those who may not have had the opportunity to be educated. We're going to educate those where it was illegal to educate that population of people. Not illegal any longer, but we still have a large population that being educated in the college level was not a part of their mindset from high school or middle school to high school. We still owe 100%, 200% to those students to make sure that everything that they need, like those students that would come in that thought about high school from kindergarten, we need to start infusing that and do it quickly. So that caring and that nurturing that we started with, the mission hasn't changed. It has not changed. It's the same mission. We may call it something different. We may call it access. We may call it co-recs. We may call it those things. It is the same exact mission as day one in 1903. It's just a different population. I would love to be alive when we see the last generation is the first generation. I want students in school. I want students, just like my parents taught us, go. Even if it's just a semester, even if it's just a day, go and get the experience. You may be surprised, but you still don't know. And that was important to me. And so as a young person, I didn't, I would push one way, they'll push the other way. You have to go, you have to learn. There's a lot out there you still don't know. And at that age, I always thought, I know everything. I don't have to go to school, but they were right. And they are still right. We need students here to learn what they don't know. And that includes our intellect and actually bringing that intellect to the higher level, sparking the fact that we want them to go beyond ASU. Get what you get from ASU, get that degree, go to law school, go to med school, just go do whatever it is that you think you're being called to do. But you got to infuse some courage in people. You have to infuse that courage. Sometimes it's not there. And when life gets hard, you mentioned earlier about all of the emotional and the psychological, life gets hard. Life gets hard as a student. Midterms are due, finals are due. I may not do well. I may be doing okay. I didn't get in the organization I wanted to get into. All of that stuff is difficult for students, for anybody.
Yes.
And we have to cure for that. We have to care for that. We have to make sure they know that even with all of that going on, let's go. Here's the next stop. Get up. Let's get moving.
Yes.
And keep that up, because guess what? Tomorrow will come.
Indeed.
And you have to be prepared for what it brings. So can't worry about it, but you can prepare for it.
Yes.
And I want our students to be prepared. Value your degree. And I also tell people, don't devalue our degree from ASU by not supporting ASU. If something's wrong, come talk. Let's have a conversation about it. Doing it via Twitter or Facebook is not the way to do it.
Yes.
Come and have a conversation. Our students need you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want them to be here, and we got to keep our students on the right track. And they want to be. I've never seen, and I've been on every campus in the university system, but I feel a different spirit in our students. I feel hope. When I go and talk with these students, I just had a young man to stop me in the hall to say, hey, I have a list of things I want you to consider. Most certainly. Bring that list on and we will figure it out. Or you don't have to bring it to me. We have faculty, we have staff that are willing to help and want to see things help. I want to loose those chains that stop us from being the excellent, the vibrant, the innovative people that we are
Sure.
at ASU. And I think that's part of the goal. That's part of why I'm here. Let's loose that chain and let's make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked him to bring that forth. And I was listening to an interview earlier this morning, and the statement was made, and they were talking, it was about politics and those that are throwing their hat in the ring
Yes.
in terms of the upcoming presidential candidacy 2020. And one of the points that was made, that we always give the responsibility over to someone else. It's easy to make the assessment about what's wrong.
Right.
But with that, you have a responsibility, because that says that you have some vested interest or concern about whatever it is that you're speaking to. But what is your role? And so all of us have roles
Right.
in this living, breathing organism called Albany State University, the faculty, staff, the
That's right.
alumni, the supporters in the community, who may have those critiques from time to time.
Yeah.
But let's not discount the economic impact that this institution
That's
makes
right.
to
That's
this
right.
region. So we all play a role in its presence, its path to the future, stability, all of those things factor in.
That's
So-
right.
So be careful what you speak, and certainly be mindful
That's
about
right.
what you do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And what you speak, again, I think I'm a testament to that. Because I think about what I want. I pray about what I want to do, and it has never passed me where I haven't gotten to that spot. Sometimes not even knowing
Sure.
that that's what I wanted. It's like, well, you did think about this years ago, and this is what we thought about. ASU, one of the things that I saw before I came to Albany 2 years ago now, can't believe it's been that long, but in 17, there was and I won't mention where it was located, but there was a survey that kept popping up every time I would pull this periodical up, and it said, is ASU relevant in Southwest Georgia? And so I may have been the only person who responded to that survey, but I did every time I pulled it up, because I thought first, why would that even be a question? How is that even on the table? What are we thinking? Where did that come from? Where's the root of that? And I got here and I realized we have to own our narrative. We have to own who we are. We have to be proud of who we are. And if we're not, we got to ask why. And then we have to go about figuring out whether or not engagement with ASU is the right thing for that particular person or group. But we have to own all of that. And we have to be okay with owning all of that. We are the largest institution in Southwest Georgia. We're the institution that you can continue to see the transition and the progress this institution makes. It is without a doubt that we are very integral in the success of Albany and in the success of Southwest Georgia. It's not just Albany, it really is Southwest Georgia. And I happen to believe with the students that we're graduating now, with the degrees that they have, and the mindset, the fact that they're not in a box, they think outside of the box. So not only Southwest Georgia, but the nation. And I look at that, I look at our students and where they're going and what they've done, past students, students that are here now and what they want to do. Wow, there are just no limits. And we just have to keep understanding that there are no limits and that we have to do it different than what we've done in the past.
Yes. So I love you made me recall a moment where you actually had to tell me, and you were always so gracious in your words, but you had to basically say, Dr. Wilson, I need you to stand down on that. Because I became extremely annoyed that we've had some members of different bases and groups who are critical to dismiss because they're looking at it from a very narrow lens.
Right.
And so there was some unfounded criticisms about Albany State University.
Yeah.
And I know I come from a different space because I've been in this world for going on maybe 16, 17 years. So I understand the greatness that this institution breeds, develops, creates, and the global impact.
Right.
So I bristle when I hear someone say something negative. And I'm not saying that no institution gets everything right.
Oh,
no
that's definitely
organization does that, because as long as there are humans in play, we're gonna make some mistakes. But I'm also very defensive when I hear some criticisms. And you told me, you had to tell me one time, stand down and understand the mindset that they're coming from. But don't forget why we are here. We're not just educating the students.
Right.
We're educating, the masses.
That's right. That's
about
right.
what we do so well and our commitment to that. I've never forgotten that, and I've appreciated that, because it requires a level of patience.
It does.
Yes.
Which, actually, I don't think either one of us have a whole lot of it. I don't think we have a whole lot, but I will say, when it comes to something as important as I need you to understand who we are, we will find the patience. We find the patience to do that. We find the patience to continue to go back to some of the same individuals, the same groups, to say, I understand this is your vision. I understand this is the lens that you're looking through. But let me give you the other side of that story. Let me explain something to you about this. I will never not do that. Right. I will. I mean, I won't call them threats, but the veiled. You really can't say this. I'll say one thing. I've had some professors just say, well, we've been told we can't say HBCU. I don't subscribe to that. I will not subscribe to that, because we're that and about 100 different things, and we have to accept all of it. We have to accept all of it. We have to accept the shortcomings, but we have a lot more positives than we have shortcomings. Some days, and I choose some days to be ignorant to some of those shortcomings, because those are distractors at times, because we're working with what we know. We're working, if something's not right, we're going to work on it, and we're going to put a lot of depth in working on it. But then we have all this stuff that's doing well, and one of the things I won't allow us to do is get marred down in what's not working and forget about what is working. All the greatness. I mean, we have such great things that are going on. I want to see us more infused, and I've talked about this, more involved with the city of Albany and surrounding areas. We have to be involved. We lived here. We live here. Our families are here. Our children go to school here. We can't do well and that not do well. But at the same time, we all have to respect who we are and what we're doing, and on all sides. And so we have to think about that. Student success, the other part of what I think about all day, every day. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it. I could be a student who didn't get far if no one took me in and made sure that I had what I needed. And that is what we do as an institution. Let's come in and let's make sure that our students are covered. That's from the human side, the psychological side, of course the academic side, and the life. We have to help where we're needed. Let's do that, and then get them to the retention and graduation. If we do those things, we are set. With this institution, again, we talk about unsinkable. I think that's only a moment in our history. I don't use it a lot because it is a moment. We are the unsinkable, unbreakable. We are the transformational, innovative, all of those things. And I don't want us to lose focus that we shouldn't be just about a struggle, but about the thriving. Right. And we have to get to thriving. And I am determined that we get there.
Indeed.
We have to.
Indeed, you are. Before Ms. Williams starts waving the red flag, because I know, and I've been so enjoying this, and I hope our viewers have, I know that they will. I'd like to wrap up with work-life balance. That's important.
It is important.
We have this daily battle with that, and since I've recently acquired your calendar, I have to be very intentional about that. But it is a challenge with the level of responsibility that you have. But let's share with the viewers, you are indeed and have demonstrated that an amazing and a phenomenal leader, and offer lessons in that daily. But you're also a wife and a wonderful mom. Let's briefly talk about that work-life balance. What do you do to ensure that you give us your best every day? So tell us a little bit, as much as you're willing to share that personal side. What do you do for fun?
Dr. Wilson, I think that's a setup question, but it's a setup. I have a daughter, and my daughter is Sarah. She's Sherwood Christian Academy, and she came down in August of last year. I smile because I just think about how wonderful that little girl is. My husband Horace, who took the opportunity to retire when we came to Albany after 30 plus years in law enforcement. So he's had a very great law enforcement career and retired to come to Albany. So I'm pretty excited about that. And you know this being the same thing. I mean, you have all the same pulls that I have as a leader in any organization, as a leader in higher ed, where your life is not your life once you come into higher ed. It is very different. You're always on. You are part of everything that is going on, and so it's been a little different here. I've never been great at work-life balance.
Okay.
I have not, but I've always had great family and friends, neighbors who have helped me to balance. So they've helped me to be more balanced with the things that I need to do at home and at work. And so with my daughter, and I've normally, and a lot of people don't realize this, but several of my nephews, people thought they were my sons because they were always with us. From the moment they got out of school, sometimes they lived with us. Every vacation we have taken, it's always been in group settings. We've always taken 5 kids, 7 kids with us. I look in the back of the car and it's packed to the brim with children, which that's how I grew up. Okay. It was always that way. And I didn't even connect that's why we do that. We always have people with us. If it's not family, there are friends that go with us. I think the best part of living the life that I've gotten to live is that they are always there in some shape or form. I have fabulous sisters that could care less about what title I have, and they hold me accountable for certain things, and when they're ready to go, they're ready to go. We took a cruise this Thanksgiving. I looked up, I think it was about 27 of us on the cruise, and I had already said, I got too much to do. Yeah, we're registering you. We're going on a cruise, you'll be here, and I was. And so I try and take the time to say that, particularly as women, we have to be able to rest. We need to block out, which I've noticed y'all have done on my calendar, block out some time that says, this is your time to return calls. This is a time when you really need to be out of the building because there's something else that's going on. I use that time. It's been really life-saving for me to say, you know what, I get an extra half hour in the morning. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to start my day.
Right.
I spend a part of that time meditating, praying.
Great.
That's the only way I can start my day. And being thankful. I have so much to be thankful for that when I think about it and take the time to think about it.
I know.
The other stuff is so small.
Yes.
Even if it's huge, it's so small.
It's small, the grand thing.
It's, gosh. I mean, I look at that and think, I have to wake up. God, thank you.
I know.
That's what I do.
It is very humbling.
It is there.
Yeah.
And then I like to be able to travel with my family, and I want to do more of that. And I actually want to become an expert in traveling. So that's part of what I'm doing at this point. How do I travel better? How do I travel well? And I want that to be a part of just a job. Just like this is a job, I want actually taking care of my family to be my job as well.
Yes.
And I want to excel at that, just like I want to excel at everything that I do.
Yeah. Well, every time I see Mr. Fedrick and the lovely Miss Sarah, they always have a smile on their face, and they're loyal lieutenants. I love how you all transition roles, and they're both very protective of you, and then you are also equally protective of them. So it's much admiration. I did get my red flag, so it's time for me to wrap up. This has indeed been an honor. I never try to miss an opportunity to share with you how appreciative I am on a professional level for what you do in terms of providing an example for the students, for the faculty, the staff, for your cabinet. And so I work to try to mirror that in my role. Excited about a new appointment that we have with Ms. Danielle Gary, and she's serving as our Senior Director of Marketing and Communications, and she said to me just yesterday, she said, how do you do it all? How do I stay organized? And I told her, you have to be intentional, and we have to do that for one another. So that is one of my wonderful and prideful responsibilities in my role in service, is to be intentional, because you have so many gifts that you graciously share with this institution, with this community. So that's why I ended on that work-life balance. There's so much more work to be done, and we need your continued service, and more importantly, your leadership. So thank you on behalf of this community. Hopefully I'll see Chancellor Wrigley in the near future. I haven't had a chance to personally thank him for his decision and being firm in this and assigning you to this role. You absolutely bring to it what I know your predecessors didn't have the luxury of having, that you were able to look at it from Atlanta, still be directly involved, not having a physical presence, and so you bring that huge perspective to this role, and it has benefited us greatly. So on behalf of all of those constituents, I want to say thank you, President Marion Fedrick, for all that you do, have done, and will continue to do for this institution.
Thank you. I really appreciate
My
that.
pleasure, my pleasure. Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this inaugural edition of A Conversation With. I look forward to engaging with you and introducing you to future change agents and global movers and shakers here that have had an impact directly and indirectly at Albany State University. Hope to see you soon.